Well, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Zweli Mkhize has made a commitment to fix what's wrong with the country's municipalities. Last month, he announced that 31% of municipalities are dysfunctional. I'm joined by the Minister in studio now. Good evening, Minister, and thank you for coming through that statistic. 31% dysfunctional, 31% almost dysfunctional, but interestingly, only 7% can be categorized as being, functional. That's a pretty ugly picture that paints. What have you been able to glean from your SWOT analysis of the country's municipalities?
Well, the dysfunctionality is a matter of concern, but if you look through, there are challenges in most municipalities, and they range from, a particular level of dysfunctionality and a level of challenges that it faces. One of the major issues that we have identified is the issue of lack of capacity within the municipality to deliver on services, particularly where we are concerned is where there is money from government for infrastructure, where we have to actually pull the money back because the municipalities are not able to spend. And secondly, instances where money gets allocated, rolled over and brought back again. About 3.4 million rand from in the past 5 years has actually not been spent. 3.4 billion rand could not be spent. And over the period, about 8.4 billion rand had to be allocated, withdrawn, reallocated. So our major focus for now has been to look at the issue of technical capacity. Some of the municipalities do not have funds to fund those specialists that we need, the engineers, different types of engineering expertise that we need, and also even the financial managers in terms of, accountants. We have a challenge on those. So what we were then looking at is we working on a program to intervene at that level so that going forward we can ensure that at least whatever funds that are available are spent, and then people can focus on what we can do and deliver.
Fortunately for me, Minister, in my past life, I did cover local government quite extensively. And as you are, mentioning the challenges, particularly this issue around the lack of capacity that hampers the ability of municipalities to then carry out projects and deliver to people. I can rewind all the way to 2005. There was a problem in 2005.
Correct.
And to me, when I saw your suggestions of what you want to do, it sounded to me like Project Consolidate of the then Minister, if I'm not mistaken, Sidney Mafamadi. You've had back to basics. There was Minister Pravin Gordhan during his tenure there. What will make your plan work now where these previous plans have failed?
Well, most of those plans that we're talking about, Project Consolidate, the focus was largely on the issue of management of the finances, and it was the same as Project Clean Audit. So that was the focus. Back to basics was a bit more comprehensive because it didn't just look at the financial management, good governance, but it went on to some of the specifics like cleaning up the streets, removal of refuse, fixing potholes and so on. Now that for me is one program that we're going to be going on with, but in the process we're actually evaluating which municipalities are progressive, which ones are actually regressing. And as we look at that, I was sitting today with the Auditor General. We're looking through all of those issues because we find a combination. This intervention we're talking about creating district technical capacity, which has to be permanent, which is a bit different to what has been happening all along. But we're building up on the weaknesses of the past and we're actually trying to improve as we move forward. Right,
Minister. The issue of revenue is always an issue in local government. Let's take a listen to what the the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC of KwaZulu-Natal, Nomsa Dube-Ncube, had to say about this issue of debt owed to municipalities to the tune of some 13 billion rand.
At this point in time, in terms of the calculations we have had, there's a total of about 13.1 billion rands that is owed to all our municipalities, of which 7.9 billion is consumer debts and 3.5 billion is business owing municipalities. Indeed, you know, this is a second biggest campaign following that Makasakane campaign that was launched by our late icon, former President Nelson Mandela, in 1996 to try and encourage people to honor their civic duties. This matter is very, very important because it is at the core of whether our municipalities survive or not, whether they are able to continue to render services to the residents, because they cannot keep on rendering services when people are not honoring their part and paying for services so that they can be maintained and be sustained and be extended to all the new people who still need the services.
Of course, that is not Nomsa Dube, but it is Lennox Mabaso who does speak on behalf of the MEC. Listening to that, Minister, you have your work cut out for you. How complex does it make the fact that you know, there's so much owed to municipalities who need the revenue to deliver the services?
Well, it makes it more complicated because you see, I've got two types of municipalities. You've got municipalities which have got a revenue base where, because of the level of development of their own area, they can raise their own revenue. Then you've got municipalities that have got no revenue base. It's a cluster of rural villages and small towns with no effective rate base to be able to generate their own. So those tend to suffer. And I think when we deal with the issue of dysfunctionality, we're looking at all of those issues. The other issue, of course, relates to the culture of payment. It's not only the communities that are not able to pay, it's not only the municipalities that are not able to pay ESCOM, but some of the corporate clients also are not able to pay. So we're looking into a formula of how we can deal with that. I've set up a team on the issue of ESCOM that is actually advising us on the best way of being able to help to deal with this. In the past 2 weeks, we have actually engaged Treasury to align our functions in terms of the management of the finances of municipalities so that the two can work together in trying to boost the capacity of municipalities to raise revenue. So it's something that we have to work on a continuous basis.
Right, Cooperative Governance Minister Zweli Mkhize, thank you so much. I would have loved to engage you a bit further, but we are watching the situation in Mahikeng this evening.